Welcome to my channel, The Historic State. In the high-stakes world of trauma surgery, reputation is everything. The steely nerves, the godlike skill, the years of experience. These are the hallmarks of the masters, the surgeons who snatch life from the jaws of death. But what happens when the master fails? What happens when a world-renowned surgeon, faced with an impossible case, finds himself utterly defeated? Today, we tell the story of such a moment. Inside a state-of-the-art military operating room, a legendary surgeon was losing a decorated Navy SEAL on the table. Hope was fading. And then, the unthinkable happened. A quiet, unassuming combat medic, someone barely noticed in the room, stepped forward, took the scalpel, and performed a procedure so radical, so unknown, it defied medical science. Who was she? And what was the secret she carried? An operating room Delta was the pinnacle of military medicine, reserved for the most critical cases. And tonight, it housed a legend in peril. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Cole, a highly decorated Navy SEAL, had sustained catastrophic injuries during a classified mission. Shrapnel had torn through his abdomen, severing major arteries and causing internal bleeding so severe it seemed unstoppable. Leading the desperate effort to save him was none other than Dr. Aris Thorne, a civilian surgeon whose name was spoken with reverence in medical circles worldwide. He had been flown in specifically for this case, his reputation preceding him. Thorne was brilliant, meticulous, and supremely confident, a man accustomed to succeeding where others failed. But tonight, Thorne was failing in more suction. "Clamp that bleeder! Where's the damn O negative?" Thorne's commands were sharp, laced with growing desperation. The SEAL's blood pressure was plummeting. The intricate web of damaged tissue and severed vessels was proving impossible to navigate. Every clamp Thorne applied seemed to cause another vessel to rupture. He was chasing ghosts, losing ground. Standing quietly at the edge of the organized chaos was Sergeant Anya Petrova, known simply as Doc Anya. She was officially listed as a senior combat medic, assigned to assist Thorne's team. Compared to the world-famous surgeon, she seemed utterly ordinary. Her movements were economical, her presence unobtrusive, but her eyes missed nothing. She watched Thorne's hands, analyzed the monitors, her mind working with a speed and clarity hidden behind a mask of calm professionalism. Anya saw the pattern Thorne was missing, the cascade failure in the microvasculature. She leaned towards the head nurse, her voice barely a whisper. "Has Dr. Thorne considered a targeted cryocoagulant infusion combined with a rapid expansion biofoam sealant?" The nurse, unfamiliar with the terms, gave her a blank look. But Thorne overheard. He snapped his head up, his eyes, magnified by surgical loops, blazing with fury and insulted pride. "A what infusion, Sergeant?" he spat, his voice dripping with condescending disbelief. "Are you suggesting field expedient guesswork in my OR? Stick to handing me instruments and stay out of my way. This is not a jungle aid station." He dismissed her with a wave of his hand, turning back to his failing efforts. Anya simply stepped back, her face unreadable, but her eyes narrowed slightly. Seconds later, the high-pitched, soul-chilling whine of the heart monitor flatlined. "Code blue! He's coding!" someone shouted. "Paddles now!" Defibrillator paddles were charged. Thorne, for one shattering moment, looked utterly defeated, his hands hovering uselessly over the patient. The SEAL was gone. But Anya wasn't watching the monitor. She was watching the subtle, residual nerve responses in the patient's abdomen. There was still a chance, a sliver, but it required something radical, something forbidden. In that instant, Anya moved with a speed and decisiveness that stunned everyone. She placed a firm hand on Dr. Thorne's arm. "Sir, with respect, step aside. Now." Her voice was quiet, but held an absolute, unbreakable command. Thorne, too shocked to resist, stumbled back. Anya took a fresh scalpel. With breathtaking precision, she made a small, secondary incision near the primary wound site, a location that made no conventional sense. Then, from a concealed pouch on her tactical vest, she produced a small, sleek, metallic device unlike anything anyone in the OR had ever seen. It had a needle-like probe at one end. She inserted the probe deep into the incision. A low, almost imperceptible hum filled the air. On the monitors, the impossible happened. The massive internal bleeding slowed, then dramatically, almost completely, stopped. The flat line on the heart monitor wavered, then sputtered back into a weak but steady rhythm. Anya calmly retracted the device, wiping it clean and slipping it back into its hidden pouch. She stepped back from the table, her face once again an impassive mask. She looked directly at the utterly dumbfounded Dr. Thorne and nodded almost imperceptibly. "He's stabilized, Doctor," she said quietly. "Localized hemostasis achieved. You can proceed with the primary vascular repairs now." Silence. Thorne stared at her, then at the miraculously stable monitors, then back at Anya, his world-renowned expertise suddenly feeling utterly inadequate. The rest of the surgical team were frozen, speechless, staring at the quiet combat medic who had just performed a medical miracle, or perhaps violated every known principle of surgery. Hours later, Chief Petty Officer Cole was stable, his life saved. Dr. Thorne, his ego bruised and his authority challenged, stormed into the office of General Miller, the base commander. "General, that medic, Sergeant Petrova!" Thorne raged. What she did in there was unconscionable, reckless. She used an unapproved device, performed an unauthorized procedure. It could have killed him. I demand a full inquiry. She needs to be court-martialed. General Miller listened patiently, his face unreadable. He let Thorne vent his fury. When the surgeon finally paused, breathless, Miller calmly picked up a secure satellite phone. He dialed a heavily encrypted number. After a brief, quiet conversation using coded language, he hung up. He then looked directly at the still fuming Dr. Thorne, his eyes now hard as steel. "Doctor," Miller said, his voice dangerously low, "Sergeant Petrova operates under a different authority. A much higher one. That? Unauthorized device. She used, Doctor?" General Miller continued, leaning forward. "It's Tier 1 classified regenerative technology. The procedure? Developed, tested, and perfected under Project Nightfall, our most advanced and compartmentalized biomedical research initiative. And Sergeant Petrova?" Miller paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. "She isn't just a combat medic, Doctor. She is Dr. Anya Petrova, lead biotrauma specialist and the medical director of Project Nightfall. She holds doctorates you haven't even heard of. She knows more about saving soldiers from catastrophic trauma than anyone on this planet, including you." The general leaned back. "You weren't brought here because you were the best, Doctor. You were brought here because she requested an expert pair of hands for the conventional repairs once she had done the impossible." Thorne stared, speechless, his world-renowned reputation crumbling around him, replaced by the crushing weight of his own arrogance and ignorance. Dr. Anya Petrova never sought recognition. She simply returned to her duties, her groundbreaking work remaining deep in the classified shadows of Project Nightfall. But the legend of the quiet combat medic, who stepped in when the world's greatest surgeon failed, spread like wildfire among the special operations community. It became a powerful reminder that true expertise doesn't always wear a famous name or a high rank. Sometimes it wears the simple uniform of a sergeant, ready to break every rule when a life hangs in the balance. NNT, thank you for watching The Historic State. If this incredible story of hidden genius, clashing egos, and life-saving innovation left you breathless, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because here, we know that the greatest heroes are often the ones operating just outside the spotlight.